This is Julia James Davis, and welcome to The War on Beauty. There are two pivotal moments that come to mind when thinking about the war on beauty. Flashpoints in time where everything started to become ugly. And that is the Protestant Reformation and the George Floyd riots of 2020. These two events, which were separated by 5 centuries, are bookends to the rise and fall of modern iconoclasm. Points where beauty was not just criticized, but actively persecuted. Both Luther's Reformation and the cultural aftermath of George Floyd led to the systematic destruction of images and monuments fueled by the belief that existing symbols and traditions must be destroyed to make way for something new. The word iconoclasm literally means image breaking, and its first major expression came during the Byzantine Empire. But for our purposes, we are going to start with the Protestant Reformation, which is really the most consequential break from the truth, beauty, and goodness of the Catholic Church. And that's important because the Catholic Church has always been so rich in symbols, in art, architecture, imagery, and ritual. This isn't, though, a superficial decoration. Rather, the Catholic beauty comes out of this profound belief that beauty has evangelizing power, that it can literally lift hearts to God and convert them to Him, which is actually, there's been a lot of cases over history where people have encountered immense beauty and have literally been converted in an instant. One of the famous ones is the French poet Paul Claudel. He was an atheist and he walked into Notre Dame and he saw the rose window and they were chanting the Vespers, and in that moment he was converted. And that is because an image is worth 1,000 words. And so when Martin Luther decided to revolt against the church, it was that beauty expressed through art, architecture, imagery, statues. They were precisely the things that became demonized in the Reformation and after. And so Martin Luther himself, he was not a radical iconoclast, but many of his followers were. In the 1520s, fellow reformer Andreas Karlstadt led mobs that stormed churches, smashed stained glass windows, broke statues, and whitewashed walls that had sacred art on it. The destruction was again theologically driven by the belief that Catholic veneration of images was idolatrous, that beauty was a distraction from pure faith. And so the result of that was very stark. Churches transformed from spaces of transcendent and rich beauty to just basically austere, stripped down meeting halls. And beauty literally became something suspect, while utility and plainness were suddenly virtuous. And so fast forward to the 19th century, something else really important happened that further bolstered the iconoclastic spirit taking over the West, which was the development of Marxist theory. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels didn't simply criticize capitalism, but they developed a comprehensive theory, a philosophy that at its core was iconoclastic. Marx wasn't a iconoclast in the literal sense. He wasn't going around smashing physical images, but in an intellectual way. He sought to tear down everything from not just economic systems, but the entire metaphysical foundation of Western civilization, including faith. Marx famously said, "Religion is the opium of the people. It is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of our soulless conditions." So Marx wasn't just an atheist, rather he was an anti-theist, as Henri de Lubac said. He saw religion as something harmful and bad for the people. The Marxist philosophy really reduced everything, including beauty, to mere material. So in this view, beauty wasn't pointing towards eternal truth. It was actually just the decoration, the byproduct of the ruling class to maintain their oppression over everyone beneath them. And so, like I said, Karl Marx, Engels, they weren't literal iconoclasts, but the Marxism and the Marxist theory that they established did lead to another wave of literal iconoclasm. The Bolsheviks in Russia and the communists in Spain, who systematically destroyed religious art, churches, and everything that presented a challenge to their Marxist beliefs. So just as the Protestant Reformers believed that Catholic images obstructed true faith and pure faith, Marxists believed that traditional beauty obstructed class consciousness. And this beauty, really not coincidentally, also largely came from the church, specifically for the Spanish communists. They went after the Catholic Church in such a brutal way. And then, of course, the Bolsheviks in Russia after the Orthodox Church. And so both movements, the Protestant Reformation and Marxism, shared a fundamental suspicion of beauty as a deceptive veil hiding true reality. Around the time of the development of Marxism, the modern suspicion of beauty was really cemented in 1908 by Adolf Loos's infamous essay, Ornament and Crime, which basically declared that all architectural and artistic decoration was immoral and against progress. He wrote, "The evolution of culture is synonymous with the removal of ornament from utilitarian objects." This is basically the idea of form follows function, and it's exactly why everything from street lamps to doorknobs to park benches went from beautiful and well-designed with artistic flourish to sterile and ugly. The philosophy of modernism turned beauty into something shameful and something to be eliminated in the name of honesty, efficiency, and purity. And so fast forward to 2020, following George Floyd's death, we witnessed a new and reinvigorated wave of iconoclasm, interestingly underpinned by very similar theoretical foundations. Statues were toppled, and not just of Confederate figures, but also of saints, of founding fathers, of pioneers, explorers. Such a wide range of people were demonized and targeted, and many of these actions were basically painted as simply anti-racist, but they followed the exact same historical pattern of iconoclasm, which was the belief that by destroying these symbols of the past, that would somehow create a better and more equitable future. So just as the Protestant Reformers believed that Catholic art was idolatrous, many modern protesters, many contemporary protesters, view traditional Western art and monuments as inherently oppressive symbols that must be entirely destroyed rather than just recontextualized and reintegrated. They have to be wiped out. So they didn't just stop at tearing down the statues that they didn't like, but rather they replaced them with something new. New statues that symbolize their vision for America. And these works were often prioritizing a political message over aesthetic beauty and ideology over craftsmanship or a moral message. Just like Marx and Engels, they weren't just atheists, rather they were anti-theists, or Luther and Karlstadt, they weren't just simply church reformers, rather they were anti-Catholic. And so these new iconoclasts aren't just advocating for their new DEI vision of the world, rather they are anti-beauty. And so here we are, our world is looking really aesthetically bleak. But it's not just because of the Reformation, it's not just because of communism or because of progressive agendas, but it's because of a major severing of truth. Once truth goes, so does beauty and all things good. The abandonment of beauty for utility, for some theological or philosophical high ground, has designed obsolescence into our buildings and into our surroundings. Our homes, our cars, our towns are all now designed to crumble and fall apart. In reality, we own nothing and we leave no legacy because of the erasure of beauty. Just look at the buildings that we cherish, like St. Peter's Basilica or the Cologne Cathedral. These are buildings that are so supremely beautiful, designed with seemingly zero utilitarian purpose, and yet they've been standing for hundreds of years, routinely drawing millions and millions of visitors. And so that's really the paradox, which is that beauty is ultimately longevity and utility, and it's our legacy. And so to bring this all full circle, I believe that the iconoclasm of the Reformation and the George Floyd riots are bookends to each other, because I think that that era is decidedly over. No one wants it anymore. People are starving for beauty because deep down in each of our souls, we know that it's not superficial and it's not wrong. Beauty is not something merely surface level, and neither is it like some sort of pagan bad thing. We know that beauty points to the divine and that it's worth fighting for. That's why when something like the burning of Notre Dame Cathedral happens, the whole world erupts with horror, because we know, whether you're a Protestant or you're a Catholic or not religious, it strikes you so deep as something that we can't lose. So the war on beauty that began really 5 centuries ago is losing its grip. We're witnessing not just the fall of modern iconoclasm, but I hope the beginning of a new renaissance, a return to the understanding that truth, goodness, and beauty are inseparable, and that a world without beauty is a world without hope and meaning. And so really, to full circle this full circle, what do we have to go back to? Because where did this all begin? It all started with severing from the Catholic Church. And so to reclaim that truth, that goodness, and that beauty, it's by returning to the church, which, not coincidentally either, is the last bastion of all 3 of those transcendentals in our very fallen, messed up world. Return to truth, return to the church, and we get beauty back. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I thank you so much for watching. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to know what you think about this, and I will see you in the next one.